Yo, so a couple days ago, man, 6ix9ine girlfriend was sitting in the car. This is like crazy, gang.
What began as a rap beef has ended in tragedy, courtroom drama, and a shocking goodbye forever. We open with the image of Trippie Redd in handcuffs, being marched into the courthouse as cameras flash. Outside, fans shout, reporters swarm, and the tension feels heavy enough to choke on. Then the frame cuts to Ariella Palano, the radiant influencer known to hundreds of thousands as Ariella lalangosta. Her smile, her glamour, her unstoppable nightlife energy, all of it frozen now, remembered only through photos, memorial candles, and teary Instagram tributes. Police call what happened a targeted attack, but everyone in New York knows it feels like something darker, something stitched into the long, bloody feud that has been eating at hip-hop since the late 2010s.
Right, Lisa, the woman was found inside the car here along the Cross-County Parkway just before exit 7, which is Broad Street. That's just where we are. So Westchester County Police they started getting phone calls Sunday morning around 8 o'clock about a disabled car that was on this side of the parkway. Officers arrived to find a woman dead behind the wheel of the car.
Ariella was more than just a friend of 6ix9ine. She was an icon in her own right, a beloved figure in clubs from Manhattan to Queens, a familiar face for patrons. At Icon New York and Starlets of NY, she had the kind of warmth that left an impression even on strangers. And yet her final moments were anything but warm. She was found alone behind the wheel of her car in Mount Vernon, a quiet stretch of Westchester asphalt turned crime scene in an instant. Police reports describe her as likely targeted for violence, and the words echo like a warning bell, because nothing about Ariella's life suggested randomness. This was a woman who had been in the circle of one of the most controversial rappers alive, a circle that has seen endless betrayals, courtroom confessions, and sudden disappearances.
I really don't understand. Y'all coming for 6ix9ine. I don't know what they gonna say. 6ix9ine got into it with him, put a hit on the life insurance. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna say. You know what I'm saying? All I'm saying, whatever the situation is foul, gang.
As mourners shared her photos with captions like happy and blessed, the reality of the case grew heavier. She had worked a shift the night before, poured drinks, flashed her smile, and likely had no idea that someone was tracking her. Hours later, she was gone. And almost immediately, the speculation began. Was this meant as a strike against her directly? Or was she caught in the crosshairs of something meant for 6ix9ine himself? Either way, the whispers quickly curved back to one name, Trippie Redd. And that is why the cameras fixate on his bowed head in the courtroom today, as prosecutors read charges that bind him, at least in narrative, to Ariella's untimely end. The story between Trippie and 6ix9ine is long and ugly. It started as petty shots and lyrics, snowballed into live-stream taunts, and eventually broke into real violence. 6ix9ine testified in federal court years ago that he and his 9 Trey affiliates ambushed Trippie outside a hotel, describing in chilling detail how his crew stalked Trippie's Sprinter van across the highways of New York before confronting him. We all remember the sound bites. We attacked him at his hotel. He said matter of fact, like it was just another night in the city. This feud was never just about words. It became about bruised egos, wounded pride, and eventually, bodies on the ground.
So 6ix9ine was telling. He was hanging out with these cops before they even went, he was telling, the drivers telling on him, everybody's telling on each other, right? So he's sitting there. That's the biggest excuse. That's what Nicky Barnes, back in the day, he was on the cover of Times. He told, because his man was with his wife. He was saying he was with my wife, but then again, he told on 100 guys.
Trippie, for his part, always claimed the moral high ground. He blasted 6ix9ine on Instagram, accusing him of surrounding himself with abusers and hypocrites. These NS always contradicting themselves, he spat in one post, calling out both 6ix9ine and XXXTentacion for their criminal charges. He declared that he respected women more than his rivals ever did, crowing, "I still have the one up cause I respect women." Yet here he stands today, accused of being tied to the silencing of a woman who embodied the very scene he claimed to defend. That contrast, that hypocrisy, makes this courtroom moment feel like some grim piece of theater written years in advance. And then comes the rumor that won't fade away, the whisper, that Trippie didn't need to act with his own hands. Former associates claim he used to brag, smirking, that he didn't have to pull the trigger himself. The insinuation is clear. Deals with muscle, favors with dangerous men, contracts spoken in coded language over studio smoke. Was Ariella the victim of one of these whispered arrangements? This suggestion is enough to send chills down the spine, because if true, it would mean that the rap beef we once laughed at for its clownish antics has crossed the line into something closer to organized violence, where family and friends are no longer off limits. At the same time, there's a competing narrative, one that makes this tragedy even murkier. Industry whispers say Ariella wasn't just the radiant hostess or the glamorous Instagram star. Some claim she was living a double life, feeding information to authorities about certain crews, perhaps even about 6ix9ine's own enemies. Was she cooperating behind closed doors? Was she giving details to police that placed her in the crosshairs of retaliation? No evidence has been confirmed, but the idea alone throws gasoline on the fire. Because if Ariella was more than just collateral damage, if she was an informant moving through New York's underbelly, then her end might have been inevitable the moment her name appeared on the wrong list.
Now, police also told us that an autopsy was planned for Sunday night, and they were hoping to release more information at some point this morning or later today. So we're just waiting on that. As soon as it happens, we'll be sure to let you know. We're in Mount Vernon, Westchester County. Let's go back to the studio.
Think about the possibilities. If she was leaking secrets, then her end was payback. If she wasn't, then maybe she was simply caught in a storm, meant to take down the man she loved and stood beside. Either way, the conclusion is chilling. Ariella's presence in 6ix9ine's orbit was enough to paint a target on her back. And now, with Trippie Redd sitting silent in a courtroom while whispers of a hitman deal circle around his name, we're left staring into the kind of story that feels too grim even for hip-hop's long history of beefs. The truth about Ariella's end may be more shocking than anyone imagined. On her final night, Ariella clocked out from her shift at Icon, New York just after 2 a.m., smiling for selfies with coworkers, posing in the bar's glowing lights as if the evening were just another routine stop in her busy nightlife calendar. Witnesses recall her leaving in high spirits, slipping into her car with a playlist still humming through the speakers. What nobody knew was that this would be the last time she was seen alive. Hours later, she was discovered in Mount Vernon, her vehicle stalled on the Cross-County Parkway. Detectives quickly determined this was no accident and no random act. Their statement was chilling in its brevity. She had been deliberately targeted. The blunt truth of it only raised more questions. Did she notice someone following her on the highway? Did she phone a friend to share a sense of dread? If she did, those conversations haven't surfaced, leaving a haunting silence where answers should be.
And now to that upsetting discovery on a local parkway. A woman found in a car in Westchester. News 12's Lisa LaRocca is in Mount Vernon Forest this morning.
Her social media tells a different story, one that cuts like glass against the grim reality. Just weeks before, Ariella had shared poolside videos from a trip to Colombia, captioning them with the words, "happy and blessed." She danced in a cowboy hat, laughed on horseback, toasted drinks with friends. The kind of joy that felt eternal on Instagram stories turned out to be fleeting in real life. That's the cruelty of her case, the split screen between a radiant influencer who seemed unstoppable and the young woman found lifeless in a car. Police are convinced she was silenced for a reason, but what reason? And who decided it was time to end her story? In the days that followed, whispers from inside New York's tight-knit nightlife painted an even darker picture. Some claimed Ariella had voiced fears about being dragged deeper into drama she never asked for. Others suggested she had confided in colleagues that people had been watching her at the clubs, showing up where she worked, staring too long, leaving her rattled. If that's true, then Ariella may have known the walls were closing in. Did she know something she wasn't supposed to? Was she on the verge of revealing secrets about the people orbiting 6ix9ine? Those secrets, if real, may have been valuable enough to spark a brutal cover-up.
I don't know what happened. I know it's foul, and whoever did it, y'all bogus, man. Y'all bogus, man. That beautiful young lady like that, man. This world just getting to a whole nother level. It's just getting out of control, gang. Y'all sick.
And yet, not everyone is convinced that Trippie Redd was the mastermind. His sentencing provides a neat headline, but the streets are alive with theories about a third force, a shadow actor in the feud. Several former associates have hinted at rival groups eager to inflame tensions between Trippie and 6ix9ine, turning their personal feud into a battlefield for larger agendas. One question keeps surfacing. Who benefits most from Ariella's removal? Trippie, already a sworn enemy, or an invisible hand hoping to plunge both camps into chaos? It wouldn't be the first time outsiders fanned flames for their own advantage. We remember how 6ix9ine testified about being pressured by 9 Trey affiliates, dragged into conflicts he couldn't fully control. He admitted under oath that his main dispute with Trippie stemmed from jealousy. But jealousy alone doesn't explain the chilling escalation. Some insiders now suggest that Ariella's fate was decided not in a recording studio, not in a nightclub, but in whispered conversations among rival crews who saw her as leverage, a pawn in a feud she couldn't escape.
We lost the code in hip-hop. Now, is it played out? I watch other podcasts like, yo, that don't matter no more, this, that. Does it not matter no more? And I believe 6ix9ine, when he He gave guys 20 years in jail. All the guys he was like, oh, but he f***ed my wife. Oh, but he did. That means nothing.
There's another theory, far more sinister, that someone within 6ix9ine's own circle engineered her end to send him a message. It sounds unthinkable, but consider the chaos in his life: repeated arrests, probation violations, canceled shows, even a pending sentencing for possession charges. The man who once bragged about being untouchable has spent years dodging both rivals and the law. If Ariella was truly his Queen of New York, as he called her, striking her down may have been the cruelest way to show him that nobody around him is safe. Imagine the terror of realizing the betrayal came not from across enemy lines, but from within his own ranks. For years, 6ix9ine has thrived on noise. Instagram rants, live streams filled with taunts, colorful provocations that kept his name plastered across headlines. But in the aftermath of Ariella's passing, something unusual happened. Silence. The man who once baited rivals daily suddenly retreated, posting only fragments of memorials before vanishing from his own stage. For someone whose livelihood depends on being heard, the quiet struck fans and critics alike as a sign that something deeper was unfolding beneath the neon persona.
The day 6ix9ine sat on that stand.
Yo.
No!
Man.
You remember, if you're watching the story, they taking him to court in bulletproof vests. They acting like he was telling on El Chapo. He put a lot of good people in jail, man.
Facts.
Psychologists who study celebrity behavior point out that such abrupt withdrawals often mask either overwhelming grief or paralyzing fear. When a star who is known for exhibitionism falls mute, it can suggest a moment where the facade has cracked. Some say 6ix9ine is simply mourning, struck by the loss of someone he publicly called his sister. Others whisper he may be hiding, fearful that speaking out will place him in further danger or expose knowledge that ties him too closely to Ariella's fate. The silence, in that sense, becomes less a tribute and more a shield. Observers have compared his retreat to the aftermath of other high-profile tragedies in the industry, when artists notorious for bravado suddenly went dark, unable or unwilling to perform their grief in public. In 6ix9ine's case, the timing is particularly suspicious. He faces his own looming sentencing for possession charges, a legal storm that already threatens his freedom. To vanish now could be a tactical choice, a way of minimizing attention while the investigations around Ariella tighten, but it could also be a telltale sign of a man caring more than he is willing to admit.
There's no such thing as a credible rat. But send me the bullshit of the shoot the out of
He told on
They
6ix9ine.
set him up, though. They altered the tape.
Trauma has a way of surfacing even when someone tries to bury it, and psychologists note that guilt often reveals itself through avoidance. If 6ix9ine feels on some level responsible for the dangers Ariella faced simply by being in his orbit, his silence might be the only expression he can manage. For a figure built on constant sound, quiet may be the purest form of confession. And in the ruthless world of online speculation, that quiet is being interpreted not as respect, but as evidence that he knows more than he is saying. Fans, meanwhile, are torn between compassion and suspicion. Some argue that for once, 6ix9ine deserves space to process loss without public intrusion. Others point out that his very brand is built on oversharing and spectacle, making his retreat difficult to read as anything but calculated. The uncertainty fuels debate threads and comment sections, where every hour of silence is dissected. Every lapse in his usual trolling is cast as a clue. In the echo chamber of social media, absence can feel louder than presence.
Yo, what's the event in hip-hop that broke the camel's back? Pause. To make it to where you could snitch. And if you make good music or something, you could still live out here in hip-hop. Like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back in hip-hop, where we had a code and there is no code no more?
And so the silence becomes its own kind of narrative, an eerie backdrop to the courtroom proceedings against Trippie Redd and the unanswered questions surrounding Ariella's final hours. Whether it reflects genuine mourning, gnawing guilt, or looming fear, it has reshaped 6ix9ine's image in the public eye. He is no longer just the provocateur, the loudest voice in the room. He is now the man who went quiet when the stakes turned fatal, leaving us to wonder if that quiet is mourning or if it is the sound of secrets being kept. As this storm of theories brews, one fact remains undisputed: Ariella was adored. Her employers at Icon New York described her as their shining star. Starlet's Lounge called her a one-of-a-kind soul. She had over 500,000 followers who knew her as the influencer who lit up every photo. And now those same followers are left to scroll through her final posts, searching for hidden meaning in captions, replaying her stories with tears in their eyes, wondering if she sensed what was coming. And so the feud that began with a beat, a diss, and some trash talk has mutated into a true cautionary tale. We're not just talking about rivalries anymore, We're talking about lives lost, communities shaken, and families left with no answers. This is more than a feud. It's a story about how fame, violence, and betrayal can weave together into something monstrous. The streets are talking, but the truth remains buried. So we leave you with this question. Who really silenced Ariella Machiapolano? And is 6ix9ine himself the next target? Drop your theories below because this saga is far from over. Until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and never forget that behind the headlines are lives that can vanish in an instant.